Welcome. This is Take Charge of Your Oregon Appeal Workbook Series. In this workbook series, we'll be covering Take Charge of your Stage 1, your Oregon Direct Appeal. Stage 2, Post-Conviction Relief. Stage 3, your Post-Conviction Relief Direct Appeal. And Stage 4, your Federal Review. We'll also be covering the appendix. Let's get started. You'll find the books are printed on demand. They're printed on 20-pound paper, and you'll find that your loved one's name and identification number is on the bottom of each and every page. This is to avoid theft from other inmates or improper confiscation by staff. Plus, Oregon and federal law is in a constant state of change. So we update our books regularly, and when we print out a book, you know you're getting the most current case law, laws, and rules. Let's get started. We have a nice index that outlines each section of the book. Stage 1 is your direct appeal. We have a synopsis of what is involved in a direct appeal and the different stages in the book. So you find yourself convicted of a crime in Oregon. Whether you're doing probation or whether you're currently in an institution, the best time to get started is right now. We talk about overcoming your own personal obstacles, how to keep busy and sane in an incarcerated situation. Navigating a legal system. We have a personal testimony from a legal assistant at Snake River that's gone through this process. We talk about things to avoid, like know-it-all inmates, utilizing the institution's law library. Oregon, at the time of this filming, has limited time to the law library to 4 hours a week. It's critical to have your own resource material within your cell or dorm so that you can utilize those 4 hours for research. Chapter 2 talks about organizing your support team. We then move to preliminary appeal issues and introduction and overview. Synopsis of Oregon law. We talk about how to read case law. We talk about the time limitations you have to file an appeal and how they affect you and your rights to appeal in the higher courts. We talk about how to develop a claim. What is or isn't allowed in a direct appeal claim. We talk about the exhaustion requirements of a claim. Exhaustion just means, have I done everything necessary to bring this claim forward? Understanding procedural defaults. Legal materials to acquire for your personal library. There are some free resources that we list here that you can write to and receive. You have the right to get your own case file from your attorney. And here's an article to discuss all the legal rights that you have towards your case file. What you need before you begin your appeal is a complete checklist here about all the different things that you need and when you requested it, when it was received, and that you received a printed copy. You don't want things on CD because you don't have access to them. Common traps that snares in the appellate process. There's a lot of them. You're going to want to be briefed on those. And then we finish with a quiz so that you can see how well you understood the literature or what you may need to go back and research further. We move into your direct appeal. We talk about the appellate's brief. That's the brief that you file initially, and we provided a copy here of what an appellate brief looks like. Okay, we talk about different representations, whether I want appellate counsel or a legal advisor. What is a direct appeal issue? We talk about the rules that govern that. And now is your opportunity to review the state's discovery, trial transcripts, anything that the judge made a decision on. Here's a 5-step process on how you can organize your thoughts and your concerns about what happened throughout the trial or plea agreement process, and how you can whittle down those thoughts to issues that are raise-worthy. So this is meant to take someone who knows nothing about law to create issues that have validity that you can present to your attorney. So this is all stepped out, and then you work out these worksheets where you take the issue and you take it further. You've researched it and you show how it is a viable issue. Then we take our 5 best direct appeal issues. Perhaps here you started with 30. Now we're going to whittle them down to the best 5 ones you have, and that's what these worksheets are for. You're going to present that to your attorney, and he's going to raise those in the appellate brief. Again, the appellate brief explained, and here's the sample I was talking about. If your attorney writes the appellate brief, then you have a chance to review it and see what concerns you may have about it. And here's a worksheet so that you can discuss it with him or her about. If your attorney believes that there are no meritorious claims, there's such a thing as a Balfour brief. We've explained what that process is. We've explained your rights to file your supplemental brief with it. That's a rather long discussion, but you're prepared for that here. The state then has an opportunity to present their brief. That's called the respondent's brief. You have a chance to comment on it and prepare that for your attorney. Oral arguments will then ensue and a decision will be rendered. Here are timelines when you can expect a decision. If things don't go as you'd like them to go, you petition for review from Oregon Supreme Court. Your petition for review worksheet to help better organize your thoughts, and the state may file a brief challenging your request for review, and here are your comments you can talk to your attorney about how their brief isn't valid. And your options if you lose on direct appeal and request for review. And those options include post-conviction relief, which is stage 2. Post-conviction relief is a civil process brought on by someone that's incarcerated that doesn't believe he or she should be incarcerated due to civil rights being violated. A post-conviction relief requires you to create your own issues and to file your own petition, in which then an attorney will be assigned and create a formal petition. This book takes you from A to Z on how to create a valid PCR petition that's going to create issues that have validity and strength to them because you've gone through the processes here to validate them through case law and statutes. And that's what this section of the workbook is all about. Relevant statutes to your PCR are listed here. 5 categories of documents you need before you can do your PCR. Those are listed. Your PCR timelines are explained right here in this worksheet. What is a raisable PCR issue? We talk about the most common claims that are done in PCR and then our 6-step process. You'll see here it's similar to our direct appeal in that you list the issues that you believe have validity, and then you go through this process of whittling them down and validating them through case law and statutes. So we have a lot here. We take our best ones here, we go to the law library and utilize that for as we have to research them, and then we finally present them to our attorney. Remember, to prevail at a PCR hearing, you must create a viable issue. You must support that issue with case law. You must prove the issue affected the outcome of the proceeding. You must prove your issue with evidence and validate issue through a memorandum. These are the simple steps that have to be taken with each and every issue you want to raise. All right, next thing is challenging the effectiveness of your appellate counsel if you did a direct appeal, and that's what these forms are for. Finally, we look at actually writing the PCR petition. You'll see these bullets here are discussion points for the template for a PCR petition here. So you'll see those match up, and there's an explanation for each of these on how best to write them and why they're there. You're allowed an investigator during the PCR process. You're going to want to read about that. The state's right to depose you. There's lots of regulations that talk about that, and you're going to want to be prepared for that. We move to proving your PCR claims worksheets. And these are, again, your opportunity to prove why your issue has validity, mostly to yourself, to prove it to yourself, but then also to your attorney who will put it in a formal petition so that the judge can rule on it. And there's a lot of worksheets there to help in that process. What's going to happen at the PCR trial? This isn't a retrial of the evidence that was against you. This is whether or not you received adequate representation throughout the process. It's easy to make that mistake, and this workbook helps you avoid those mistakes. What happens when my PCR is decided? Next, we move to post-conviction relief PCR appeal. If I were to lose my PCR, I need to appeal it just like I needed to appeal the conviction. And that process is largely the same, except you already know what your issues are. So that's basically a rediscussion of stage 1, the direct appeal, except it's geared towards post-conviction relief. Our next step, if we don't receive relief in Oregon, we get to take our case to federal review. That federal review can look like a habeas corpus that goes through the Oregon District Court and could go all the way to the Supreme Court. We discuss timelines and procedures. We have a template of the habeas corpus application. We have a system here on how to fill it out. Unlike the PCR, where if I fill out my PCR and I forgot an issue, I can amend it later. That's not true at the federal level. When I fill out my federal habeas corpus petition and I omit an issue, I may never get to resurrect it. So before you file your federal habeas corpus petition, you need to make sure you've got every issue articulated as well as can be, and you're going to do that if you follow these steps. Here's the outline of how to articulate your issues and more forms to help you. You may be assigned a magistrate. You're going to want to learn about what a magistrate's power is compared to a district court's power. You may need to file a notice of appeal with the Ninth Circuit, and here's the template as well. Our supplemental books, Take Charge, How to Motivate Your Attorney. This contains a few sections worthy of discussion. Your attorney has certain obligations and duties. You're going to want to make sure that those duties were done, and his ethics code that he has to operate under, he or she. There's a template letter if you're having issues with your attorney that you think something should be done. Here's a template letter of what a complaint could look like to the Oregon State Bar if you needed to file a bar complaint. There's also Church vs. Gladden motions where you're alerting the court that something's wrong. And you're going to want to file those motions as needed to alert the court that your attorney isn't doing something that he or she needs to do. When you meet with your attorney, which is special occasions, you're going to want to be prepared for those meetings. These worksheets prepare you for those meetings in the best possible way so that you can utilize them and keep a record of what was discussed and his or her responses to those. So we provided lots of copies for that. And then the Dictionary of Legal Terms. Here's 300 words of Latin and other legalese to help you understand the documents and reports that you'll be reading. There's the summary to our post-conviction workbook series.